Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan and today I'm going to be discussing 10 NHL players who will get traded in 2020. Now in 2019, we saw a bunch of star players finding new homes. Whether it was Mark Stone and Matt Duchene or just recently Taylor Hall, a bunch of star players were traded. And in 2020, I see that trend continuing. But which players do I see being the most likely to be traded, and which 10 players do I see finding new homes in 2020? Watch till the end for all my answers, and of course, subscribe if you're new. Now going on to the first NHL player in this video who I think will be traded in 2020, I'm going to go with Devils defenseman PK Subban. Now the 30-year-old Canadian defenseman is past his prime, and so far this year he's kind of proved it. In 34 games he has 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points. Not good whatsoever, and with that massive contract, it would be pretty hard to get that off the books. But for New Jersey, with Taylor Hall gone, I think PK Subban is the priority to be traded just a few months after they traded for him. Now, considering that Nashville was only able to get a couple of second-round picks and a couple of prospects for PK Subban when they traded for him, I don't exactly see New Jersey getting a lot for him at this point. Again, he hasn't performed all that great for New Jersey, and it's been evident in his play. But there are a couple of teams I think would be interested in him, even if there would be some caution. The 3 teams being Colorado, Winnipeg, and potentially the Vegas Golden Knights, where I think he could potentially go. I think the most likely candidate is Colorado, where they might want some more depth, but at the same time, adding a defenseman like that I think would be huge for them. They have the cap space too, and I think it would work along with the prospects and the picks to go along with it. Now going to the second NHL player in this video, who I think will be traded in 2020, I'm going to go with Nashville Predators forward Mikael Granlund. Now Granlund, the center/left winger, the Finnish stud at 27, has 1 more year left on his deal basically this year, becomes a UFA after this year, but right now he's sitting at just over $5 million. And for a team like Nashville, he hasn't been all that great, definitely hasn't been good since he came to Nashville, and I think could be a great rental somewhere. And for Nashville, they could get some decent picks, decent players back that could help them in the future and in the now. Now, to me, the 3 candidates that I think are the most likely for Granlund are the Buffalo Sabres, the Montreal Canadiens, and the Carolina Hurricanes. To me, the Hurricanes might be the most interesting and maybe the favorite for Granlund in my opinion. Adding another Finn to that roster would not surprise me whatsoever. They already have a Finnish super squad going, and he's a rental that could definitely provide some good offense. It's obvious that he isn't getting the full ice time that he wants in Nashville and the full opportunity, but on a team like Carolina playing alongside Sebastian Aho, I think it makes pretty fantastic sense. Now going to the third NHL player who I think will be traded in 2020, I'm now going to go to LA Kings goalie Jonathan Quick. Now Jonathan Quick is a guy that I don't think every team is clamoring to have. He has 4 more years left on his deal at like 5.8, not the greatest contract, but he hasn't played all that well on a pretty terrible LA Kings defense. And the thing is with Jonathan Quick is it might not be a trade deadline deal either. He might be a guy traded in the offseason to a team that desperately needs goaltending. Now, the 2 teams I see being the most active in trade conversations are the Minnesota Wild and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, I see Columbus possibly being out. They were rumored to get Quick about a year ago, and those rumors kind of fizzled out. But a team like Minnesota, I think, would be definitely interesting. Acquiring a guy like that, they do have the cap space, and it seems like they are trying to go for it. They are right now 5th in the Central Division, so they aren't playing bad whatsoever. And the goaltending has been a huge reason why they've been bad. But with Jonathan Quick, who's been bad in a bad defense, Minnesota has a much better defense, and Jonathan Quick could be much better for them. I'm not saying he's the solution for them or the savior for them, but him going to the Minnesota Wild would not surprise me. Now going on to my 4th player that I think will be traded in 2020, I'm going to go to New York Rangers forward Chris Kreider. Now the 28-year-old left winger has 1 year left on his deal, so after this season he is a UFA. But sitting at just over 4.5, he'll likely be one of the most attractive assets around the trade deadline, and for a team like New York, which is obvious they're not going to win a Stanley Cup this year, that's a guy that could get a lot back from. Picks to prospects to even NHL-ready players right now. Now the thing is, he hasn't even played all that great this season, but with a guy with that physical edge that can bring a solid 2-way game, That's an asset that I think a lot of teams would like to have. To me, the three contending teams are the Dallas Stars, the St. Louis Blues, and potentially the Calgary Flames. I think the Blues might be the best fit. If the Blues can find some cap space, I think that's a guy they would love to add for a potential cup run. But either way, New York is going to get a ton of interest for a guy like that. And with the two-way game that he presents, again, getting picks and prospects is almost a necessity at this point. Now going on to my fifth player who I think will be traded in 2020, I'm going to go with Jake Gardiner of the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, Jake Gardiner, unfortunately, has not had the greatest fit in Carolina thus far. He has 4 more years on his contract at just over $4 million. And the sad thing is that he hasn't even played all that badly. It's just that he hasn't had a fit in Carolina yet. He's being played mostly as the fifth defenseman, and the ice time just isn't there compared to what he had in Toronto. Now, the thing is, if a Gardiner trade does end up happening, I think it will most likely be in the offseason. Carolina, I think, would like to hold on to him and go for a playoff run. And if it doesn't end up working out, I think an off-season trade would be an inevitability at this point. There are a few teams that I think would be interested, namely the Predators, the Avalanche, the Blackhawks, and potentially the Coyotes. But even if Carolina doesn't end up retaining on that deal, I think there will be a ton of teams ending up interested in him in the offseason that could use a defenseman that could pitch him amazingly offensively. Again, the fit hasn't been there in Carolina, but that doesn't mean that he can't play great somewhere else. And now, moving on to the sixth player that I think will be traded in 2020. Gonna go to Florida Panthers forward in Mike Hoffman. Now, Mike Hoffman has been fascinating on Florida because he is producing, but at the same time, that's a contract that I think Florida will like to offload. It doesn't seem very likely that they'll be able to extend him after this season, his contract ending this season, then being a UFA after this year, and a trade I think is the most likely realistic option. He has just over $5 million on his deal, which isn't too much, and I think a team that is in need of goal scoring, especially on the power play, would love to have him. Now, to me, the three teams that I think would most likely be on him are the Islanders, the Canes, and the Stars. As a Dallas Stars fan, I really don't want Hoffman, but at the same time, I think the Islanders would be the favorite there. To add a scoring winger, I think is one of their priorities right now, and just scoring in general. For a team that already has an amazing defense and amazing goaltending, adding a forward like Hoffman will make them a true contender, not just to be a playoff team, but to be a Stanley Cup team this year. And now on to the seventh NHL player who I think will be traded in 2020. Now I'm going to go to a little bit more of an obvious one, that being Alex Galchenyuk. Now, Galchenyuk has just plain not been a fit on the Pittsburgh Penguins. It was heavily rumored that Buffalo might be a team in on him a couple weeks back, and I think that is still the case. For a guy that has 1 more year left in his deal, is on a contract year, he hasn't played all that great, but Pittsburgh could end up getting him for a couple of good players, and I think that might be the way they go. Now, Galchenyuk only has 10 points this season, but he is still 25 years old. He is a huge gamble, but for a team it could pay off. To me, the two teams I think would be the most in on him are the Buffalo Sabres and potentially the Minnesota Wild. Those are two teams I think would be in on him. But to be honest, I think the Buffalo Sabres are really the only team that I think would definitely go on him and actually be able to pull off a trade. I think it might take a couple of prospects, maybe an NHL-ready player as well. But for Pittsburgh, I don't think he's a fit there anymore. And I can't exactly see them just letting him go in UFA either. I think they want to get some assets back if they can this NHL trade deadline. And now, moving on to my eighth NHL player who will be traded in 2020, I'm going to go Coyotes goaltender Antti Raanta. Now, Raanta, I do not see being a trade deadline deal. I don't see it happening. I think Coyotes are going to want to go in the playoffs, which is likely to happen at this point, with both goalies healthy. But in the offseason, if Arizona wants to go after another free agent or sign Taylor Hall, I think Antti Raanta will be a guy to go. And for teams that need goaltending, especially goaltending that's available, there's really no better option than Antti Raanta, who is having another solid year this season. And for Antti Raanta, in just over 10 games at Arizona, he's gotten a .919 save percentage, performing very, very solid for them. And he has a contract at $4.25 for another year after this one. So he'll be a UFA in 2021. But there are two teams that I think will be mostly interested in him, being the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Minnesota Wild. Let's say the Leafs go into the offseason really wanting to fix that backup goalie problem. Maybe they have Arizona retain a few bucks on that, and then you have Frederik Andersen and Antti Raanta as your goaltenders, which would be awesome. And for Minnesota, if they want to go that route with Raanta, he would be their immediate starter, way over Devin Dubnyk. Now going on to my 9th player who will be traded in 2020, and it's along the lines of the more obvious side of things, like Alex Galchenyuk. I think it's almost an inevitability that he'll be traded at the trade deadline, but I'm still going to pick Jean-Gabriel Pageau of the Ottawa Senators. Now, Pageau has been straight brilliant. Right now, sitting in his prime at age 27, I think could be a second-line center for a lot of teams heading into the playoffs. Right now, he sits at 26 points in 36 games, and on a team like Ottawa, he's been able to perform amazingly alongside guys like Anthony Duclair. And for a Ford rental right now, he might just be the best on the market right now. And it's not like he would be a huge add either for teams, at least when it comes to cap space. Right now he sits at $3.1 million until he's a UFA after this season. And I think that is super valuable, especially for teams that are strapped to the cap. To me, there are quite a few teams that will be in on him. The main contenders, I think, are Dallas, Nashville, and the New York Islanders. Basically, any team that wants forward help and more cheap alongside it, I think would love to have Jean-Gabriel Pageau. And even as a rental, he would be super valuable, especially for a team like Dallas. Now, going on to my 10th, final, and most hot take pick out of these 10 players. For my 10th player who I think will be traded in 2020, I'm going to go with Kasperi Kapanen of the Maple Leafs. And when it comes to Kapanen, you might be thinking, there's no way, right? But I think there is a sliver of a chance that in this offseason, or even potentially at this trade deadline, Toronto could use him potentially to get a great defenseman from the market. Now, the 23-year-old Finn right now sits at 3 more years on his contract at $3.2 million. And if Toronto was a team that had some cap space available, I think they'd keep Kapanen, of course, and I think that'd be a great contract by the end of it. Before Toronto, they need defensive help. And obviously, in a perfect world, you'd love to trade Cody Ceci, but I don't exactly see there being many teams that want him right now. Now, I see Kapanen being traded more as an offseason move rather than a trade deadline move, but if Toronto is really serious about winning that Stanley Cup and getting another top 4 defenseman in their group, then a guy like Kapanen could really help that cause. And he hasn't even been that amazing for Toronto this year. He has 19 points, which is not bad whatsoever, but he is replaceable, especially this season. He's no longer even playing on the penalty kill, which was one of his biggest assets throughout the past couple of years. I think if Toronto is able to get him for a top 4 defenseman and strengthen that defense core, it might be the best way to go. And his contract might be good, but for Toronto, that's a contract that they can get out. He's healthy, ready to go, and if he does get traded at the trade deadline, I personally wouldn't be too surprised. But those are my 10 players who I think will be traded in 2020, the calendar year, not just the trade deadline, but throughout the offseason and next season as well. But with my 10 picks, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in those comments down below. Let me know what you agree with my top 10 picks, what you agree and disagree with, and also which player you think will get traded in 2020. But if y'all want some more Grav videos just like this one, y'all should click on this playlist right here to watch all of my NHL ranking and top 10 videos all in one place for you to enjoy. But if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and of course hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below all your thoughts and share this video with your friends. Get this top 10 out there in the world, boys. We're almost at 10K subscribers. We'll make the world to get that before the new year. My name is Nathan, and I'll see you all next video or stream. Goodbye.